There is a question Carl Jung once asked that has been waiting for you your entire life, and tonight you are finally close enough to hear it. So let me ask you something. When was the last time you stood in the middle of the life you built? The career, the relationships, the home, the version of yourself you spent decades constructing, and felt absolutely nothing. Not sadness, not gratitude, not even disappointment. Just a strange, hollow stillness, as if you were a guest in your own existence. You looked around at everything you were supposed to want, and something inside you whispered, "This is not it." You did not say it out loud. You may not have even let yourself think it fully. Because to think it would mean admitting that the map you have been following, the one handed to you by your parents, your culture, your fears, has led you somewhere you do not actually want to be. Jung believed there comes a moment in every life when the self you have built begins to suffocate the self you actually are. He called this the Great Confrontation. And tonight, in the quiet between one version of your life and the next, you are standing inside it. So before you turn away, before you reach for distraction, before you tell yourself you are just tired, or just stressed, or just going through a phase, listen. Because what you are feeling is not a problem. It is a signal, and the soul does not send signals lightly. Look at your life, truly look at it. The job that pays well, the relationships that look good from the outside, the routine you have perfected, the image you have polished until it gleams. By every measurable standard, you are doing well. You are succeeding. You are the person you said you wanted to become a decade ago. So why does it feel like you are slowly disappearing inside it? You wake up and there is a weight in your chest that has no name. You go through the motions and there is a thin film of unreality between you and your own days. You smile at the right moments and laugh at the right jokes and answer the right way when people ask how you are. And somewhere beneath all of that, a voice, quiet, persistent, unwelcome, keeps asking the same question. Is this really my life? You are not broken. You are not ungrateful. You are not failing at happiness. What you are experiencing has a name, even if no one around you is brave enough to speak it. You are experiencing the slow collapse of a self that was never fully yours to begin with. Jung taught us that the modern world specializes in producing people who are exquisitely successful at being someone they are not. From the moment you could understand language, you were being shaped. Be good. Be useful. Be impressive. Be the kind of person who makes us proud. And so you became that person. You became very good at it. So good that somewhere along the way, you forgot that there was anything underneath. This is not your failure. This is the wound of an entire civilization that mistakes performance for living. But the soul keeps its own ledger, and the soul knows. Now take a moment, because here is where everything turns. What you have been calling emptiness, that hollow feeling, that strange grief inside a life that should be enough, is not the absence of meaning. It is the presence of a deeper truth pressing against the walls you built around it. Jung described two forces inside every human being: the persona, the mask you wear, the role you play, the version of yourself you present to the world, and the self, your true center, the soul beneath the strategy, the one you were before anyone told you who to be. For most of your life, the persona has been running the show. It got you the grades. It got you the job. It got you approval, safety, belonging. The persona is not your enemy. It is the part of you that learned how to survive in a world that demanded conditions for love. But somewhere along the way, you started to believe the persona was you. You forgot it was a costume, and now the costume is too tight, and the soul beneath it is suffocating, and you are calling that suffocation emptiness. But it is not emptiness. It is the self, knocking from the inside. Everything you are feeling right now, the dullness, the disconnection, the inexplicable grief, is your soul refusing to keep pretending. It is the most honest thing inside you, finally loud enough to be heard. The life you built no longer fits, because you no longer fit inside the version of yourself who built it. And that is not a tragedy. That is the beginning. Jung urges us to understand this clearly. The discomfort is not the wound. The discomfort is the medicine working. But before you can step toward the life that is actually yours, there is something you must face. And this is the part most people refuse. You must meet your shadow. The shadow, as Jung described it, is everything about yourself you have refused to look at, the parts you buried because they were not acceptable. The anger you were told was unladylike or unmanly. The desire you were told was selfish. The ambition you were told was too much. The softness you were told was weakness. The hunger you were told was greed. Every piece of you that did not fit the persona was exiled into the dark, and there it has waited. You may have spent decades convincing yourself that those parts of you do not exist. But Jung reminds us, that which you do not bring to consciousness will come to you as fate. The shadow does not disappear when you ignore it. It runs your life from the basement. It chooses your relationships. It sabotages your work. It whispers, "You're not enough," in the voice of every person who ever made you feel small. The reason your life feels empty is not because you are missing something out there. It's because you are missing entire pieces of yourself in here. The parts you abandoned to become acceptable. The parts you sacrificed to be loved. The parts you locked away when you decided who you had to be in order to belong. And here is the truth. Few are willing to speak. The cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek. The very parts of yourself you have been running from for decades are the parts that hold your aliveness. Your power lives in your shadow. Your purpose lives in your shadow. The self you have been searching for, the one whose absence is creating this hollow, lives precisely in the territory you have been forbidden to enter. To come home to yourself, you have to walk into that dark. Not all at once, not violently, but honestly, with courage, with the willingness to see what you have refused to see. Jung believed that this descent is the central work of a human life, not the achievements, not the accolades. The descent, the willingness to know yourself fully, including the parts that frighten you. And once you begin that descent, you will discover something else must follow. You will have to let go. This is the part no one warns you about. When you start to listen to the soul, when you start to remember who you actually are, the life you built around the persona begins to crack. And that is terrifying, because that life cost you something. You earned it. You sacrificed for it. You shaped yourself to fit it. But you cannot carry all of it forward. Some of it was never yours to begin with. The career you chose because it sounded impressive. The relationship you stayed in because leaving felt like failure. The beliefs you inherited from people who were never asked to question them. The image you maintain because you are afraid of who you would be without it. These things are not bad. They simply belong to a self you are no longer becoming. Jung taught us that change is not an ending. It is a doorway. The shedding is not loss. It is liberation. Every identity you release makes room for the one that is actually yours. Every false yes you stop performing creates space for the real yes underneath. You do not have to burn your life down. You do not have to make sudden, dramatic choices, but you do have to begin telling yourself the truth about what drains you, about what you have outgrown, about the small daily lies you tell to keep the persona intact. The emptiness is asking you to put down what is not yours so you can pick up what is. And then something begins to happen. Quietly at first. So quietly you might miss it. Jung called it synchronicity, the meaningful coincidence, the moment when your inner shift is mirrored by something in the outer world. A book falls open to the exact passage you needed. A stranger says the words you have been waiting decades to hear. The phone rings with an answer to a question you only just allowed yourself to ask. A song plays at the precise moment your heart was breaking open. These are not accidents. They are not magical thinking. They are the universe confirming that you are finally moving in the direction of your own truth. When the persona is in charge, the world feels mechanical and indifferent. When the self begins to wake up, the world begins to speak. You have probably already had these moments and dismissed them. The dream that came true. The thought of someone right before they called. The opportunity that arrived the very week you finally admitted you wanted it. You called these things coincidence because the persona has no language for the soul's communication. but the soul knows. The soul has always known. Synchronicity is the soul's signal that you are finally listening. But do not mistake this for the end of the work, because the path forward will test you in ways you cannot yet imagine. You will have moments, many of them, when you doubt everything. When the old life calls to you in its familiar voice and tells you that you were happier before you started asking these questions. You were not. You were just numb. And numbness is not peace. Numbness is the persona's promise that if you stop reaching, you will stop hurting. It is a lie. The hurt you feel when you reach is the hurt of becoming. The hurt you feel when you do not reach is the hurt of disappearing. You will look back at choices you made and feel a pang of regret. Years spent performing, relationships you stayed in too long, versions of yourself you wore long after they stopped fitting. Do not punish yourself for this. Jung reminds us that you could not have known what you had not yet learned. Every detour was the only road available to you at the time. The shame you carry for not waking up sooner is just one more thing the persona uses to keep you small. The point was never to live perfectly. The point was to wake up, and you are waking up. There will be days when the old patterns reach for you. The urge to please, the urge to perform, the urge to disappear back into the comfortable lie. This is not failure. This is the gravity of an old self still pulling. Each time you choose the truth instead, the gravity weakens. Each time you honor the quiet voice from deep within your unconscious, the persona loosens its grip. And eventually something extraordinary becomes possible. You begin to live from the inside out instead of the outside in. This means boundaries, real ones. Not the performed kind you read about. The kind that come from a deep, quiet knowing of what you can and cannot carry. You begin to say no without explanation. You begin to say yes without apology. You begin to notice when a conversation drains your soul and you stop pretending it does not. Some relationships will not survive this. The people who loved your persona will not always love yourself. They were attached to a version of you that was easy for them. When you stop being easy, when you stop abandoning yourself to keep them comfortable, some of them will leave. Let them. The answers you seek externally are already within you, and the right people are drawn to your truth, not your performance. Other relationships will deepen in ways you did not know were possible. Because for the first time, the people in your life will be meeting you. Not the polished version, not the agreeable version, not the version curated for their comfort. The actual you. And the ones who can love that one are the ones who are always meant to walk with you. You will begin to honor the inner voice. The intuition you have been overriding for years. The quiet pull towards something the persona told you was impractical. That voice is not random. It is the deeper self pointing toward the life that is actually yours. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life. But when you finally listen, the unconscious becomes your guide instead of your jailer. This is when synchronicity returns. Not as a quiet whisper this time, as a current. You will start to feel the universe organizing itself around your truth. Doors will open in places you stop knocking. People will appear who feel less like strangers and more like recognitions. Opportunities will arrive that fit you so precisely it will feel impossible, but only because you spent so long believing you had to force everything. When you align with the self, force becomes unnecessary. The life that is yours moves toward you the moment you stop chasing the life that is not. This is what Jung was pointing toward. Not magic, not manifestation, something older and quieter and far more honest. The life that emerges when you stop performing and start being. The peace that arrives when the persona finally serves the self instead of replacing it. The aliveness that returns when the parts of you that were exiled are welcomed home. The emptiness you feel right now is not your enemy. It is the most loving thing inside you. It is your soul refusing to let you settle for a counterfeit life. It is the sign that you have outgrown the self you built, and the self you actually are is finally ready to be lived. You do not have to figure it all out tonight. You do not have to know what comes next. You only have to be willing to stop pretending, to put down the script you were handed, to let the old life loosen its grip, to listen finally to the soul that has been signaling you all along. If something in this resonated with you, leave a single word in the comments. the word that came to you while you listened. Share this with someone you sense is standing at the same threshold. Subscribe and turn on notifications because the path is long and the soul speaks more clearly when it is met regularly. And remember this, your soul is always speaking. The question is whether you are finally willing to listen.